So welcome everybody. This is SharePoint Dev Ecosystem, SharePoint Patterns and Practices Community Call. This is the April 2018 edition, and April 10th is the precise timing. So today we'll kind of go, this is a typical monthly community call, so we'll go through what has happened within the last month, and that will typically take like 15 to 20 minutes, me having a presentation and a few slides and a discussion on the topics. We'll kind of talk about the user voice updates, so what's happening there. I'm going to mention a few user voice entries, which we are currently working on, so you'll know exactly where we are with that. Monthly summary as well and other details. Then we'll have new announcements. Sean Squires, who just joined on this exact minute, is going to do some announcements around the new site script actions for site designs and site scripts. So we will not be waiting only for SBC making these things available for you, because we want to have them for you as fast as possible. Then in SBC, meaning SharePoint Conference in May, we will have additional capabilities available. Blog post, by the way, again on that one will be coming right after this call when I get my access on the blogging platform. Now, so we'll have a demo from Sean Squires around the new site script actions in practice. All of what Sean will be demonstrating today is available for you to download from the GitHub by default, so you can really easily start using all of the stuff what you will see today. And then we'll have Yannick Plenevaux, sorry for wrong pronunciation most likely, but Yannick is going to do a really cool demo, a client-side web part built using SharePoint Framework, which can be used to create site design definition and JSON files. And Yannick is going to update on the latest status of that one as well. Is it already supporting the new stuff or not, or which of them will be supporting? We'll see. Cool. And then Q&A hopefully in the end. That is absolutely the intention. But let's actually go through quickly a few typical slides and just quickly explaining if you are first time joining on the SharePoint community calls and you're trying to figure out what is this all about and how would I align on the SharePoint Dev community. Now, there's multiple cycles and depending on your availability, depending on your interest, depending on your time, which you can use on this one, you can select how do you engage. You can just use our community channels or use the SharePoint Developer group in the Microsoft Tech community. You can join on bi-weekly SharePoint Framework community calls, and these are bi-weekly concentrating on SharePoint Framework development and client-side technologies. So we'll cover Office 365 CLI, client-side development using SharePoint Framework, PnP.js, and all of that stuff. There's a second bi-weekly SharePoint General Dev community call, which is also happening at the same time on Thursdays, which is more around end-to-end designs. So provisioning, PnP PowerShell, CSAM designs, API gaps, kind of an end-to-end, let's say, scanners and solution designs. In the general SharePoint Dev community calls, we've been going through stuff like, let's say, hub sites and what does it mean for developers, or branding, modern branding, how can you do that and what are the limitations will be one of the topics in the future. And then we'll have these monthly community calls, which are happening always on the second Tuesday of every single month, except on July's. We've been taking July always off. We'll see if we will take July off on this year as well. We'll see. Most likely not, actually. But these monthly community calls, we go through as a summary what has happened within the last month. So if you haven't had a time to join on previous community engagements or this community calls, you can jump on this one or check the recording from our YouTube channel, and you'll be up to date on the latest and greatest on SharePoint. Now, so quickly on the, let's say, the SharePoint Dev community, this is just if you're wondering how many people are actually working or accessing all of this information and the stuff what we're releasing and using. The YouTube videos are being watched quite a lot. So there was 162,000 minutes of watch time in YouTube within March. GitHub usage is growing significantly. SharePoint is by far the biggest GitHub organization comparing Office Dev, Microsoft Graph, OneDrive, and so on. And we have 37,000 unique visitors within past 2 weeks, which is pretty cool with 191,000 views. On the docs.microsoft.com, the SharePoint Dev documentation, we had 831,000 views, and obviously that's actually increasing quite hectically on every single month, and we will probably break the 1 million views in the documentation pretty soon, which is cool. The PMP reusable components, these are kind of, I wouldn't say old school SharePoint PMP or community stuff, but this has been around for a few years, and the PMP provisioning, PMP PowerShell usage, we're tracking their usage pretty closely. And the HTTP requests for these are now 9.7 billion in a month, and there's 11,000 unique tenants which are using them. And you probably, if you're a new guy on the or a girl on the community and SharePoint Dev community, you probably noticed that the SharePoint framework numbers are not mentioned on the slide, and we still not yet have a clearance on showing them to you, but trust me, they look extremely good. So most likely in SharePoint conference, we'll finally release some public numbers on the SharePoint framework adoption, because that's going off the roof, to be honest. Now, a few other things, kind of general announcements, something which I'm keeping in every single presentation what we do. So documentation and guidance, AKMS SPDev docs or docs.microsoft.com/SharePoint. You will land into the official SharePoint Dev documentation. MSDN will be shut down or completely not indexed pretty soon. We are in progress of moving all of our CSAM API documentation, schema XML documentation, REST API documentation on this side. All of the new stuff is already getting released on docs.microsoft.com/SharePoint. And you can always find the latest and greatest from this side. And all of this stuff is in GitHub, so you can contribute. If you find a typo, if you find a mistake there, you can have a discussion with us in a GitHub issue list or in a GitHub, or you can suggest changes on the documentation as well, which is absolutely brilliant. Now, other things, running into issues. So really making sure, please do not send me emails, because still people do this and say that, hey, I found this potential bug in a CSAM. Trust me, I do not scale. Or the individual engineers do not scale for those one-to-one questions or questions. So please go to AKMS SPDev issues. This is our GitHub issue list in SPDev docs, which we triage with multiple people in a week. And there's multiple engineers and PMs who are actually then looking into these issues, trying to help you figure out what actually goes wrong. And this is the only way we can scale. We do not scale by people sending one-to-one questions for somebody else. And there's a lot of benefits around getting your issue on this issue list. Number one benefit, other people will see that there's something wrong with SharePoint Online or there's potential bug. And that's a good thing. So the other people will know that it's not just them running into the issues. Apparently, it's a wider issue, and Microsoft is looking into that. The second big thing is that whenever we answer that issue, the other people will know the answer as well. So it's not just one-to-one discussion around some sort of an API or question around the API. So please use this as much as possible. We are triaging that as much as possible, and all of the comments from the SharePoint Dev documentation are already getting created in this issue list. So we are then tracking them as well. Now, a few other things. This is something relatively new. I think, was it last week? I think this was last week as well. Time flies when you're having fun. We have a new SharePoint Developer portal now available, and with the latest news, videos, and samples. And there is more than 300 samples available for you to search using the sample gallery, which is a great tool for you to find what's relevant for you. So if you go to the AKMS SPDev and scroll down to the samples or click the samples, there is a great search tool for you to take advantage. For example, you can search like React and okay, so search for React or search for any tools. You can easily find them from the new SharePoint Dev portal, and really great tool for making that happen. Now, what's the other stuff available? A few more new things before we go to the monthly summary and talk about the user voice. So one of the things what we released in this month also is to update SharePoint Developer community pages. So if you go AKMS SPPMP, you are no longer redirected to an old page in the dev.office.com, which is out of date. This is now in docs.microsoft.com, and it will list all of the community calls, all of the open source initiative, all of the projects, what are we doing, all of the repositories, what are we doing, and all of that stuff. So you are more up to date on what the SharePoint Dev community is actually doing and what are the opportunities for you to contribute. So we're trying to figure out and we do have a FAQ on those pages. So if you're trying to figure out if you want to contribute, what would be the ways of contributing? Going into these pages and trying to figure out the answer on that one, or asking a comment or a question on the pages is much better once again than sending a email message to somebody, having a one-to-one discussion. Good. One more thing before we go to the monthly summary. Impact of Azure Access Control retirement for SharePoint add-ins. This is something which went live last week as well in the dev.ops.com/blogs. Just making sure for those who are not actually following up on the social media that often that you are aware of this. So the ACS it will be retired, but only partly. So the actual ACS retirement does not impact SharePoint add-ins at all. So all of the SharePoint add-ins, endpoints and registration, everything else will keep on supported and keep on moving, being alive in the future as well. The ACS for custom applications will be actually retired by November 7th, if I remember correctly. If you want to have more details on this one, go to dev.ops.com/blogs and look for this blog post, and there we are then linking against the Azure or to the Azure documentation, where you have all of the details around the SharePoint impact around this retirement. Cool. A quick look on the roadmap. So we do have, obviously we don't have, well, we've been having a lot of progress since Ignite. So there has been humongous amount of stuff happening after Ignite. And there is a small new, let's say a step forward in here, which is more site design actions. So deploy SPSS packages, site column content type creation, regional settings, etc. We'll go through the list of these things in a second. These will be available for you today, actually in production tenants, which is super cool. And the blog post and the documentation for those will go live immediately after this monthly community call. So within like 10 past of next hour, the documentation will be absolutely up to date for you today currently. And super cool stuff. Groupify API is still scheduled for this quarter. Let's see if it's early this quarter or late this quarter. We'll see how fast we can actually get that one out. And then there will be more branding options as well. When we'll see, but this has been already announced that we are working on that one.
Yeah, more branding stuff definitely at the SharePoint conference. And,
yes, absolutely.
Yes, so.
And like mentioned on the slide, the next big announcements are within SBC 18, and that's on 21st of May in Las Vegas. So if you're interested on getting the latest and greatest on SharePoint, SharePoint development and also other stuff on SharePoint, please join us on the SharePoint conference in Las Vegas. It's 3 days from Monday to Wednesday, from 21st to 24th of May. So, and it is our spring event. None of those sessions, unfortunately, will be recorded, which is a pity, but obviously we will have a blog post announcements and documentation updates scheduled to go live as part of the announcements, which will happen in SBC. Good. Cool. A few points on the user voice and a few notes on here before we go to the actual more detailed on the site designs and site scripts. I wanted to pinpoint here a few items. So first of all, the managed metadata term store REST API, getting a lot of additional votes. We do know that this is a critical thing for a lot of you, and we need to get it addressed. It is now tentatively in schedule to start working within a month or so, within upcoming months. We cannot give you an ETA when and what will be available, and we'll solve all of your business scenarios, but we're absolutely looking into getting that happen. Now, on the SharePoint Framework side, adding support for single-page application in SharePoint Framework, we're looking into this one. We cannot actually, again, give you an exact yes or no or the timeline for that one, but we're closely looking into that one as well. Support for .NET Core with CSAM. We are actively actually working on this one, but to be precise, we're not looking into having a .NET Core support. We're looking into have .NET Standard support, so that code will be then working within a .NET 4.7 and also in a .NET Core. So that will be then include CSAM extension for .NET Standard, which will be then available for you at some point. Again, we're actively looking into that to happen. Add support for library packages in SharePoint Framework, gaining a lot of additional traction as well. Absolutely in our roadmap, looking into making that happen. Field customizer, evolution forms, quick edit mode. This is more around making sure that the field customizer is active on the list views and also on the edit forms, which is completely understandable request because the JS link was actually working on those as well. Can't actually provide again any details and timelines for that one, but we're actively looking into doing development on the list side as well. And maybe one note on the REST API citizenship, we are looking into, now we've been kind of circling around different options of getting our REST API documented. We've been now starting to add more and more REST API documentation one by one to the official dev docs. We are also looking into starting to create a Swagger files for the REST API documentation. That's unfortunately though something which we need to do manually due to numerous reasons. So that will still take a while to get fully clarified, but we're looking into making that happen. One of the challenges around the item number 9 is that it's not actually, it's so wide issue or so wide user voice entry that it's not actionable because it requires like, okay, REST API citizenship of which of the things and which of the APIs, all of the APIs, and reality is that all of the APIs will never ever be documented. It's just realities of life. We want to give you as much as documentation guidance as possible, but there are also resource constraints around these things. Cool. A few more things. April 2018 release. You can go to the dev.office.com/box for all of the details what was included in April 2018 release. I'm not going to mention all of this stuff in here. This is basically what has happened within the SharePoint development, open source and community side and development guidance videos within the last month. So if you go to dev.office.com/blogs and the April 2018 update, you can have a full list of things what has happened, and that is a lot. There's a lot of activity is happening, because also if we have a look on all of the people who've been contributing from the community side, the number of people is just keeps on growing and growing. So it's a humongous amount of people are helping us on this journey. So thank you for being part of this open source and community driven thinking and helping each other of the community with your contributions. This SharePoint community would not be as strong as it is without us helping each other and helping others to succeed by using the community channels. Now, on the company side, these are the companies who've given their employees permissions to contribute to the open source and spend time on the open source initiatives. To be fair, these are the companies also which we have a permission to show the logo, as the persons who contributed have also given us the permissions to show the logo in our communications. Thank you for being, let's say, forward thinking, because the open source and the community driven thinking is absolutely the theme in the industry. More and more people are looking into doing open source and community driven work, so we can be more successful together rather than fighting between each other. So super cool, and thank you very much on that. Now on the Microsoft side, kind of a typical list of people. There's certain new persons here like Bob German. Bob German is going to do a cool demo on this Thursday in SharePoint Framework community call. Cool demo around how to use the same SharePoint Framework solution or code base in a both SharePoint Framework solution or in a classic customization. And super cool demo, but that's coming up on Thursday. Now, that's it for quick summary on things. And should I or should you, Sean, do the quick intros before we go to the new actions? Your call.
Why don't you start it? I'll jump in because I'm trying to fix one thing super quick.
Yes, no rush. So we have plenty of time to get the demo.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, thanks, Buzz.
Cool. So let's actually making sure that everybody is up to date on what are we talking. So site designs and site scripts, what are they and what are the new actions? So first of all, on the site creation, we've done significant investments on the modern site creation in SharePoint Online. Again, this is in SharePoint Online for now, potentially in SharePoint 2019, but we can't sign that right now in this call. We've done significant investments of making the site collection provisioning extremely fast. This is now 4 to 5 seconds, which is humongous improvement as it was 15 minutes in the past. And also one of the key points here is that you are able to configure what kind of sites are getting actually created. So you're no longer just limited on a Office 365 group related site or communication site. You can actually define the behavior and look and feel and lists and libraries and all of that within the slides by using JSON based configuration. And that's really cool. Now, how does it actually work? Actually, let me get in here. Whenever you create a site from the native out-of-the-box SharePoint welcome page, if you go to the SharePoint welcome page, click Create a Site Collection, you will be shown by the selection of an Office 365 group associated site or communication site. And after that, you're able to then select the site design. So what site design do you actually want to use for creating the site? And that site design then can contain script actions. Basically, whenever we create a site, we'll first create the site collection using the out-of-the-box, just the basic, let's say, communication site. But then the site design is defining what are the additional actions to be performed for that just created site. So you can actually apply a theme, you can add a navigation, you can trigger flow, you can create a list and all of that stuff. This is the old set of actions, so nothing new there yet. And then you'll get a site which is modified based on your business requirements. Now, there is a set of relatively, let's say, limited set of actions when we went live first. So there is the trigger flow option, which will give you the opportunity, for example, for calling Azure function. But we also want to make sure that you will have additional more and more site script actions in the future, which you can take advantage. And that's Sean Squire's responsibility. Sean Squire owns this capability, right, Sean?
Sure. Yeah. Yes, I do.
Cool.
Yeah. Before you advance, I just want to underscore how important what you just showed on that last slide is, because the advantage here, guys, Vesa and I have been talking about this for years, but we're borrowing from that remote provisioning model that has become so prevalent in the community. And this is so powerful because it allows us to continue to evolve the base template while still giving you the flexibility to build these configuration scripts on top of the work that we're continuing to update. So really, I think, is evolving the whole templating model in a great way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was a question from Mike quickly. Can you apply a site design to a new subsite? The answer is right now no. The site designs are for the root site and site collection provisioning. Anything you want to add there, Sean, on that question?
No, just I will say technically, folks, there's nothing really preventing us from allowing the application of site designs to things like subsites and other templates. And I know that folks have let me know that they would be interested in that capability being unlocked. We are looking into it. There's just a lot of testing there that we want to make sure that we're validating so we don't enable that capability and put folks in a bad spot.
Yep. Excellent. Now, one final slide before we go through what are the new actions. So, anatomy of a site script. So, site script is basically a JSON file. So, what happens here is that we create always the new site using the default out-of-the-box site definition, technically on behind the scenes. But then you are able to create the site script, which is associated to the site design, where you define what kind of lists and libraries are getting actually created. And these are basically JSON definitions. And you define basically using the JSON structure what are the actions to be performed for just created site. And that's basically what is a site script. Anything what you want to add there, Sean?
Nope, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I think if it should go without saying that the flexibility here is that you can essentially create a site script and then use it for different site designs. So we decouple those intentionally. Yep.
Absolutely. You could have a one site script for branding, one site script for libraries and lists, and then you can bundle them or not bundle them, and that's really the thinking behind of the scenes. Yep. Now, do you want to take over the presentation, or I can be your click-through assistant?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, because then then when I take over, I can just jump onto my desktop where
Absolutely. I'll be your lovely assistant. So, okay.
Thanks, Vesa.
So, but announcing basically April 2018 release for site scripts and site designs, and this is more site actions for you to take advantage in your site design and site script, and this is absolutely great. I'm going to move on the following slide, Sean, and you can explain what are all the new goodies which will be available starting today.
Yes. So this is the money shot right here. So what we wanted to share with you guys today, and I've got some samples that I can demonstrate here for you today, is just a bunch of new script actions that were largely ones that we have that have been in the backlog, ones that you guys have been telling us, hey, we need. I know that I'm probably going to hear, what about this, what about this? I saw one about web parts on Pages. We are working to enable web parts. I will say this, the one that's a little bit further out, just as a full disclosure, is being able to configure modern site pages and then populate those with the appropriate web parts. There's just still some more work to do on the Page API before we can enable script actions for those, but definitely something that is on the roadmap. We hear you loud and clear, and we're as excited and eager to get that to you as you are to have it. Real quickly, I tried to break up some of the work that we've done in the last couple months here, just to sort of help you get your head around the variety of changes, frankly, and the types of things you can do with site script action. So there's things like settings. We have a new action that allows you to set regional settings. We are also working on adding the ability to select a language to the site provisioning flow, so you can actually do that at creation time. We had to decouple those because language is actually one of those interesting immutable properties of a site. So we have to designate and set that site language at the time of creation. But after creation, we can go ahead and run a script and set those regional settings. We've also added an action to support external sharing. So that is pretty cool. If you want to, independent of the tenant settings, which will always trump anything you do, depending on how it's configured in Admin Center, you can actually set the external sharing capability of a site. A bunch of list and library actions. I think the big one here is we now have site column support, and we also have the ability to create your own content types, as well as create your own custom views. Now, I will say there's definitely some more work to do in a couple of these areas, but I think you'll be pretty excited with where these new actions are going. We definitely want to give you the ability with the content type. Right now, the action is more declarative, so you have to define that content type in the script, but we are looking at supporting referential content type. So if you've already got something, say, defined on another site collection, or even in the enterprise content type hub, you would be able to reference and use that. Apps and solutions. Vesa, you might have some more to add here. Vesa was instrumental in helping me kind of frame these up, but we have a number of actions that are available today and some that are coming very, very soon to enable installing or registering, rather, deployed solutions from your app catalog, as well as applying extensions that are also tenant scoped.
Quickly on that one, just to clarify, so the install SPFX solution actually includes also SharePoint add-ins. So what it means is that you are explicitly installing SharePoint add-in or SPFX solution from tenant app catalog to the site. So right now it does not support site collection app catalog, which would be more useful in a sub-site scenarios, but that's a different discussion, so let's not even start that discussion. But it will basically install the site or the solution to the site as part of the site script. The second thing which is mentioned there, extension support coming soon. This is more for SharePoint Framework extensions which could be deployed or might be deployed using the tenant scoped option. So basically the extension would be available for site collection, but you still need to associate the extension to be active as adding a user custom action and so on. And that's what we're now building. Well, Sean is responsible of building based on the thinking on the SPFX team side. Cool. Sorry, Sean. All right.
And then the last one, real quickly, the bucket I couldn't figure out what to do with. So just a couple of miscellaneous updates. We've, I don't know if Patrick's on the call, but I've gotten some great feedback from folks saying, hey, love the trigger flow action. Really wish you guys would do two things. One, allow a little bit more site information through, and also give us the ability to write back so that we can communicate better when we're running our own custom solutions when they're actually done. So working backwards, that latter aspect, we have a plan in mind and we are working on it. Fortunately, there's some security implications we have to work through with the APIs, so that one's a little bit further out, but rest assured your feedback has been heard. As far as the additional properties, I'll show you a quick example of that. Essentially what we've done is added some additional properties that will allow you to collect things like the creation time, the creator's email, the name if it's available, even the site description. And then the thing that's cool about that is because that's coming through when you use a trigger flow action, you can actually collect that data and then write it back to a SharePoint list. So I can show you a quick example of that. We fixed a couple of things with some of the existing actions like join hub. We were saying you joined a hub, but we didn't tell you which one. So we added a name parameter so you can specify that in your script. And then just a quick reminder, just in case it missed anybody's radar, back in February in that release, we actually included a new support for a PowerShell commandlet and the REST APIs for applying a site design to an existing site collection. So very cool, kind of unlocks a bunch of those other scenarios outside of the provisioning flow when you create a new site. And then finally, just as a little quick aside, some folks, we got some feedback. It's like if you aren't required to provide a preview image if you upload a site design, you can. We support that in the site design schema. But if you don't, we at least differentiate that image from the other out-of-box templates. So just to give some visual difference between your site design and the out-of-box ones. All right, Bessa, I think you had one more slide, or was that the last one?
I think we had one more. This is more around site design and site script. So AKMS SP site designs, AKMS address. Actually, it is in the docs.microsoft.com/SharePoint Dev Declarative Customization Site Designs. If you go there and use the search, you can easily find that. We also have an open source site script samples. These are currently built by me and Sean, but we would love to have also community contributions here. But they are already now at this moment demonstrating the future capabilities. So Sean is going to demonstrate some of those during his demos. Now let's actually start by Sean, and then we'll have also a cool demo from Yannick right after Sean's demo on how to create these without knowing how to do JSON. But Sean.
Awesome, super. Thanks, Bessa. Great segue on those samples, because I actually have a couple of those I'd like to show you guys, and I apologize, there's probably a ton of questions, so hopefully we'll take a few minute break before we get to the end of the hour and touch on some of those. Bessa, am I a presenter?
Yes, you are. Yep.
I am, super.
Of course you are.
All right. 1 second, let Skype do its thing. Let me know when you guys can see the stage. Let's go to the stage.
Loading 3 dots. Nice GIF animation.
Loading. Okay. Let me know when you see a code screen, a bunch of JSON. Super.
We got it.
All right. So, real quickly, excited to share with you some of these actions. Just to let you know what I was thinking I would do is show you some of the script details, just to highlight some of the new actions and properties that are available as soon as this talk is over. And Bessa and I put publish on all of that stuff you mentioned earlier.
Sorry, Sean, before you say that, guess what?
Yeah.
The documentation just went live when we were chatting on the previous minute. So
brilliant. Hey,
I'm multitasking.
Multitasking. Thanks, Bessa. That's awesome. All right. So all this stuff is there. And actually, a lot of the scripts that I'm illustrating for you today are available to you. So if check them out. These are ones that Bess and I put together to illustrate a lot of these new actions. Just a great place to start with and get familiar with all the various actions and their properties. I've already gone ahead and put these on my environment. So what I did was I built a bunch of scripts and then just built some site design wrappers. And so those are all already installed. We're not going to walk through that. There's some great talks previously that show how to take the site script and actually upload it to your tenant and then reference it in a site design so that it shows up in the UI. And you should definitely go check out those talks. There's also some in that same documentation set that Bessa pointed you guys to. There is details on how to do all of that as well. So I'm going to sort of fast track that in the interest of time and say, let's look at the site scripts and then look at the output of those site scripts, not the actual uploading of them. Okay, first one. As you can see, yay, site column support. So very excited to enable site columns. This has been a long requested site action since we started previewing site scripts with you guys last fall. So thank you for that. Excited to share this with you. You'll see that we have a couple of different actions. The model is probably, Vanessa, you can comment on this, probably not too dissimilar from some of the other declarative models here, but what you do is you create your site column, and then once you create your site column, you can then go and create a content type, and here's the create content type action, and then you can go ahead and add those columns to essentially build that declarative content type, okay? And a couple things I will point out here, this is very cool. We've also added some additional properties to these actions. So you'll see that we now have internal and display name properties, so you can distinguish your internal name from your display name. And we've also added a property to group your custom columns, so these will show up in your site column gallery. And then we're also adding additional field properties, things like enforcing unique. So some of these properties, they're all documented in the out on the document library. But essentially, these give you a lot more flexibility in the designation and settings of your columns. So you'll see we have creating site column. Then I can go ahead and create a content type. I can designate what its parent name is. In this case, it's going to be item. And then I can start adding those sub-actions where I'm adding those site columns. And then once I have that content type, now I can go ahead and create a list. And you'll see here that I'm just creating a list. And notice what I'm doing here is I'm referencing documents. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually not creating a new list. I'm actually updating and modifying the out-of-box one that gets created when the site gets created with the site template. So I'm taking the document library, modifying its description, adding that content type, adding an additional site column just to show that you can also add site columns directly to the library outside of a content type. I can even add a list field, so I can add that here. And then you'll see a couple things I'm doing. I also have a property to add to the default view. Another new thing, an action that we're introducing with this release is the ability to add your own custom views. Now, the custom views are using Camel. So what you have to do is you have to actually give your view a name, designate what the view fields are, and then you have to go ahead and include in the query property what your Camel query is. And for those of you who are familiar with Camel, you'll see that what we're doing here is I'm actually ordering by the title, and then I'm ordering by site column 1 text, which was that project summary in descending order here. And I also have, you can even add a where clause where I can say where the effort is greater than 5. So essentially, I just have that kind of flexibility to modify the view. I have some additional properties I can set on the view, as well as make this the default. So, and then I have a trigger flow, which was actually just writing to the site directory. That was just something I was messing with. But if I go back to this guy, let's go and check this out real quick. Let's see, which environment was I on? Just so you can kind of see what this looks like in action. So I have this example here where I'm modifying the document library. I'll go ahead and create that site. I actually have my intent requiring me to add a secondary user, so let me go ahead and do that. And by the time I add that, the site is done. That's brilliant. So now when the site script runs, what this one is doing is it's modifying the out-of-box default library, document library. And I apologize, I have noticed this has been a little bit slow. You'll notice that sometimes the actions get a little bit sleepy here. But you'll see that what I've done is I've added the site columns. I'm now creating that content type, and then I'm updating the document library and then running that trigger flow. We'll give this just one more second. If this doesn't run, I'm going to go ahead and just close this, and we'll refresh and see how much of it is there, just so you can see what some of these capabilities are. Let's go ahead and just do that. So now if I go to the document library, you'll see a couple of things. Oh, good. A lot of those things already took effect. Notice that this document library doesn't look like the out-of-box one because I have actually modified the view. So now I have this new view, Contoso Projects by Effort, and if we go and edit that view, you'll actually see that those settings have been applied, the title, the project status, and the effort, okay? And then you'll see that these other properties have been added, and in fact, if we go and look to see, you believe some of these changes that are happening here, if we go into the site columns, whoops, wrong place, sorry. Oh, I did have that guy there. There we go. Here's that Contoso custom group that I created for that project status site column. And you'll also see under the site content types, there's that content type that I created. Cool? All right. So that is one. Let's go and look at another one here. The other one that we've done is a slight variation of this. We've also added a new action called Add SP Field XML Support. What we realized is some of the more complex data types, there really was some benefit to taking advantage of the old field XML schema and just injecting that into our model. So you can actually, so what this action is it's more of a generic action that allows you to add field XML, in this case, in order to create some of these more complex data types. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm actually creating a choice field. And so in this case, I'm creating a choice field here named project category. And you'll see that I'm just using field XML syntax to specify that it's a drop-down choice field, that it has a default value of operations, and then it's got a bunch of choice values, things like IT, legal, engineering, etc. And then what I can do is I can add that field to a list here. So I'm creating a list. I've also created a site column. I'm now creating that list. I've added that site column. I'm adding this field. Just an FYI, this is where one of the things that we're still working on is the add SP field XML action does not yet support, it doesn't work with site columns or adding to a content type yet. So apologies for that. We're working to get the rest of it there, but we thought it would be beneficial to get these actions out to you guys and then to continue to evolve them. So that's noted in the documentation, and Bess and I will, of course, keep everyone updated as we get those additional updates together, because I know it would be very powerful to be able to reference this as A, a site column, or B, just be able to add it to a content type. So know that that's coming. The other thing I'm doing here is I'm adding an SP view, because I can do that to the list, and I can also build that view. And then check this out. I even have a verb to remove an SP view. So this is kind of powerful because I can actually take that default one that gets created, that's baked into the template, and actually remove it. So I am essentially creating a custom list here, setting a new default view, and then removing the one that was created with the template. So let's go take a quick look at that one. Hopefully this one will be a little bit more zippy here. Oh, I was able to get that name in before it finished. There we go. Okay. All right. So you see what this one did. Added the site column. Then it created this list where it added that site column, added that new choice field using field XML, and then added a new view and removed the default view. And then it also went ahead and added that list to the left nav. So if I go ahead and update this, you'll see that this list has been added to the site nav. Let's go take a look at it. You'll see that now we've got this custom view. You'll notice here's this Contoso projects by category view. And you'll notice that the all items view is gone because we've removed it. And if I go ahead and create a new item here, you'll see there is my project category. Cool? All right.
This is, by the way, really cool because this works without even the content type. So you can just configure your lists or custom lists based on this model. So you don't have to always start with the content type and associate that to the list and do configurations. So all good.
Yes. I want to make sure I'm sensitive to giving enough time to Yannick. Yeah, I just saw the thread. Guys, let me do just one other quick thing. I think there's a couple other ones.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's wrap with, I think you guys can get what the regional ones and some of the solution ones are here. Let me go back here and just show you real quickly rather than running through those. The regional one is fairly straightforward. Where did it go? Sorry here. Oh, I think I closed the regional one. My apologies. Okay, so let me just show you what the regional one is going to do. So I've got this. Oh, I think I got rid of my regional one. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. Maybe, is it still there? It is still there. Okay, so real quickly, this is what the regional one does. For those of you who have a need to set the regional settings, that is actually the reg settings option here under site administration. And you'll see that what I can do is this new action, allows you to specify the time zone, locale, sort order, and the time format. So you can set a bunch of these regional settings at the time that the site is created, or even go and apply those changes after the site has been created. And so that is a very powerful one. That is documented as well. That's a pretty simple script. In the interest of time, you'll find that example. Go take a look at it. Essentially what the script does is it requires you to, each of these settings actually has a master list of numerical values. Like UTC Dublin, I think, is value 13. So you effectively, in the documentation, we have a link to all of the lists where you can get these numerical values for time setting, time zone, locale, etc. And you can just specify those in your script, and we'll take care of it when we run the action. Real quickly, I just wanted to show you one other one. This is like the Mondo list. So just so you can kind of see how you can start to pull all this stuff together. And we'll put this one out there as well. We're tweaking this a little bit just to kind of give a really nice example of how all these actions really start to come together and bring all these capabilities. So real quickly, what this one is doing is it's creating some site columns. It's creating a content type. It's then creating a list. It's using the add SPF field XML to create that choice field. And then it's creating some views. It's removing some views. It's now even using an action we had previously shipped, the set SP field custom formatter. So you can use things like Chris Kent's very cool tool to build a column formatting JSON file and then just embed it in your site script so that you can actually do some formatting on that list. And then we're also creating another list here that does a bunch of other things as well, including formatting, views, order buys, and all that, and then adds those links. So what I want to just illustrate here is the power of what you can do when you start to bring all these actions together. You can start to build some really fancy and pretty highly configured lists. Oops, I've already made Mondo for it, it appears. And while this one is finishing up, oh, I forgot Joe. See, Joe always gets in the way. But see, at least the validation's working. All right, so there's a whole bunch of things happening. And you'll see that there's just a lot of things that can be concatenated here. By the way, we have put limits here. So I'm also showing you guys this to sort of say, hey, we have put some arbitrary limits into the number of actions that you can execute cumulatively when you run a site design, whether it's in one site script or an array of site script. And we did that largely so that we can monitor and reduce some of the impact on the front ends. But we are very much want to hear from folks and understand, did we set the right target? Do we need to adjust that? Because it is adjustable. So we want to make sure that as you guys are building these things out, please share your feedback and say, wow, you guys are limiting us too abruptly when I try and do this complex scenario. Or, hey, that's great. That's a nice limit spot. But effectively, that's what this all does. You guys should go check these things out. I will say that there is one other one that we have a nice example of even doing the install SPFX solution. That is pretty cool because then once you have that thing in the app catalog, you can go ahead and execute the site and it just gets added for you. It's brilliant. So go check out those samples. Let us know your feedback and contribute as well. I think that's it.
Now, Yannick, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
No worries. Yannick, can you start sharing? And while you do that, we can actually have a quick chat with Sean still. So, a few things mentioned on the Iron window. So, first of all, UI designer for creating this stuff is not right now in the pipeline from the feature crew, or is it, Sean?
Which part? I'm sorry.
UI designer for creating these JSON files.
Yeah, no, that's something that we definitely have on the roadmap, but we do not have a UX. I think that's where contributions from folks like Yannick come in and have value if you want to get up to speed, and I think take advantage of samples for sure. Yep. But no, we're in addition to designers, though, guys, I will say that we are also looking into doing auto extraction. So the way that we might approach it in the product is actually using the SharePoint UI to build the list that you want and then being able to generate the JSON site script from that.
Yep. And now on that one, so we in the PMP team on the PMP provisioning, we already have the extraction of an existing site. So, but what we're looking to do in the future, together with engineering and the PMP crew and the MVPs who are working on the provisioning engine, is to combine. So, getting the stuff which you can inside design, but then if there are additional configurations on top of the out-of-the-box Delta, we still have the PMP template as an optional entry for the site as well. So then you can actually hook in that one as an Azure function. But now, when and what is the timeline for that one, we'll see. We need to get the native site design extraction at some point on some level. It might be that the PMP will come up with an extraction with the site design extraction support and template together with that before, and then we get the native capabilities available. We'll see, right? So one step at a time, and because the community actually works super fast on these things. Now, Yannick, we can see your screen, and we do apologize of taking way too much time on this one, but I think what you have is brilliant because looking under Sean's JSON, they're pretty complex. So, Yannick, please take it away. Yannick, can we hear you? Or do we have an audio? No, do we have an audio hiccup?
No.
No. No. There's no indication that there would be any sound, Yannick, from your side. I think it's only me and Sean which are now live.
Is Yannick presenting? I see his screen.
Yannick is presenting. I think it's an audio hiccup on the microphone now, unfortunately. And it's not actually picking up. You could actually reconnect. We can go slightly longer. We will get this absolutely recorded if somebody needs to jump away from this call. So Yannick, if you reconnect, if it's a typical microphone, which should work, reconnecting typically helps. Or we can do this with a pantomime, which means that I can explain what we're potentially seeing, and then Yannick is presenting. So now Yannick is reconnecting. It's a hardware issue. It has to be a hardware issue. Nothing wrong with Skype.
I will say this, in case I miss any questions, folks, I will go through the conversation thread while Yannick's getting back online and get back to the Vesa, what's the best way to get back to the community? Can I just reply to the meeting invite?
No, that doesn't really work out. Well, I would actually recommend to open up a Microsoft Tech Community thread on this discussion, and that's probably the easiest way to do that. And in general, I would say that if needed and if the community sees that valuable, we could do end-to-end site design coverage in the SP Dev community call, which is within that bi-weekly call, where we go through more detailed on the stuff, because then we could actually show, for example, how to create the site design, really kind of a step-by-step coverage on the whole thing.
Yeah, I would love to do that. If folks have interest in that, I apologize. I know it's always so hard to kind of distill all this down to like the bullet points. So wanted to make sure you got the highlights, but always happy to spend more time going through it. I think an end-to-end tutorial would be great. Another thing I was going to add, folks, is I see some great questions and suggestions and feedback. With the user voice, we are looking into maybe creating a separate forum, but I'll talk with Vesa and we'll get back to the community with the plan there, whether it's like, hey, just make sure you tag your dev user voice stuff with site design, or, here's a separate form or tag you can use, because we do want to make sure that we're getting that feedback to us so that we can review it.
Yannick, can you try the recording or unmute and sharing one more time? No, there's no audio. Okay, Yannick, let's do this. There's something wrong with the microphone. Don't worry about it. That's not a massive deal. We will absolutely get this recorded in one of the community calls, not necessarily on this Thursday, but the week after or whatever. Let's absolutely agree on that. So let's delay this. Thank you, Yannick, for volunteering on that one. I will actually pasting Yannick's sample here. details around the sample in the IAM window, because now we can answer some of the questions, Sean. We still have 2 minutes.
Okay. Yannick, I'm so sorry. I was so excited to see your demo, man.
No.
So folks, check it out. Let's at least make a plug. Everybody, go check it out, and let's get him back.
But there's the link to the Yannick's code, and the whole point is that you can actually, Yannick is working on updating to include also the latest site script actions. So, but we will absolutely get that covered in upcoming calls as well. Now, any critical questions for Sean or me around site designs and site scripts?
I was starting to note a couple. I hear the feedback that, yes, as we add more site script actions, it's going to become critical that we reevaluate that limit. I hear the feedback. We are looking into that as well. One of the things that we're also looking to is to ways that we can make these things a bit more performant and also run a bit asynchronously. So like certain actions that might be longer running operations or things that can be done in the background, we might separate those out and do those asynchronously or afterwards. And I think that also gets to somebody's question about sequencing the scripts. Right now, your best bet is to sequence the actions in which you want them to be run, but we are looking at ways to give you a little bit more intelligence there. So yes, feedback noted, thank you. Approval flow for site scripts. Actually, Vincent, there is some work being done around this. We'll have more to announce, I believe, at the SharePoint conference timeframe.
And then on the publishing of the JSON schema, Sean would have wanted that to happen already. We do have some technical things, or we need to delay that for a few days or a week. We are going to release a new location for all of our JSON files, so we can maintain them in GitHub. So the JSON file for this one will be coming pretty soon. Now, if somebody let's say seems the JSON schema file super valuable right now, we can put it in the SPDev site scripts repo if somebody wants to have access on that. No harm.
That's a good idea. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Vesa. I saw a comment and a couple of plus ones to Sebastian's comment about exporting out scripts and reusing them in interesting ways. Sebastian, I don't know if you have audio and want to elaborate on that, but I will say that we are certainly, it's in the roadmap to find more interesting ways to make site designs more readily available. Let me put it this way, to sort of fulfill some of those more IW site, the safe site as template scenarios where, let's say I just built some very cool site and spent a lot of time configuring a list, and Vesa wants to use that list rather than recreating it. It'd be swell if I could just generate a script and give it to them. We are definitely looking at fulfilling scenarios like that. It's just a bit further out. Was there another pivot on that? You mentioned, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find your comment. I lost it. About PNP. Oh, let's see, here it is. An event to transform from PNP provisioning to site scripts. Whoa.
Yes. No, that's on us. On the, if I put my PNP hat on, that is absolutely in the pipeline of the PNP team. We are looking into making that happen. So we've talked about that one already in the past. So that would be super cool. Now, when will that happen? That depends. So right now, the next steps in the PNP provisioning engine will be tenant level support for automating deployment of site design, site script, everything else using the PNP provisioning template. So you can easily then automate stuff in the tenant level even. Now, now on Sean, we're going to take a few more minutes extra. If people need to drop, feel free to drop. Everything will be recorded so people can actually follow up on this. One question around the multilingual side, because I'm living also in a country where we have multiple official languages. So what is the multilingual support for these things?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm putting you on a
No, not at all. You and I had talked about that once before. It's definitely in the backlog. No ETA though, but I would love to see what we can do there. And I think actually looking at some of the things that you guys have done in the PNP space might be applicable patterns to reuse there.
Yeah, and obviously, as those who are familiar with the SharePoint provisioning or the site designs, you can actually see some similarities here. Why is that, Sean? No, just kidding. Is
that a rhetorical question?
That's a rhetorical question, absolutely.
Hey, I did see an interesting question here from Brian. Can you elaborate on the add SP field XML in the docs? Yes, Brian, I can go elaborate on that a little bit more. You actually caught me as so that piece of the documentation, the add SP field XML, we sort of feel like it's a bit of a bootstrap to take advantage of using field XML because we haven't built support for all the data types. So things like, as you said, what I illustrated with a choice field, currency, managed metadata. The managed metadata one needs a little bit more work, unfortunately. We will provide examples and updates as we get those built in. Managed metadata in field XML is a bit complicated, so we're trying to see if there's some ways that we can simplify that to when you are including it in the site script. So more forthcoming, but I think the thing I would ask you guys is, what are the common field types? I think I know what they are, but are there ones that you want to make sure, hey, make sure that you have support and prioritize documentation for these above the others?
Cool. Now we're 2 minutes on the of the hour, so let's actually close up quickly. Learn, reuse, share. That's the SharePoint Dev community, let's say, terms and actions. And obviously, sharing is caring is one of the things what we've been working or doing for past years. So AKMS SP PMP, that's the new pages for SharePoint community. Thank you everybody for joining. Yannick, don't worry about it. We'll reschedule your demo for upcoming community calls. Sean, thank you. Awesome coverage. We will also absolutely do real end-to-end deep dive on slide designs, kind of a step-by-step coverage, potentially already within a week or so. We could actually have Yannick to do his demo during that one as well. That could be actually kind of an interesting topic, not this week or the week after, but we'll get it sorted out in our schedule. But thank you, Sean. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you everybody for watching. Please keep on providing us feedback. Keep on using the issue list. Keep on using the comments in documents and community channels. We need to get your input to be able to be successful and fulfilling our business requirements. Thank you, everybody. We'll be absolutely in touch.
Thanks, everyone.